What's going on, everyone? Sky here. Welcome back to the channel. Tom Izzo in Michigan State basketball has finally filled his assistant coaching vacancy with the hiring of Lansing native Saddi Washington. So let's just briefly go through this hire and what this means for the program going forward. But at first, if you could, hit that subscribe button down there and drop a like if you do enjoy the video. So now getting into Saddi Washington. He grew up in Lansing, went to Lansing Sexton, and was an all-state guy in basketball and track and field. His father, Stan, is one of the program greats, playing here from 1964 to 1966. Averaged 18 and 10.5 rebounds a game. In college, Saddi played in Kalamazoo at Western Michigan. Averaged 16.5, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, earning 2 All-MAC academic selections there, as well as freshman honors and a second-team All-MAC and a first-team All-MAC appearance in his career in Kalamazoo. Also helped Western earn the program's first NCAA tournament victory when they upset 6-seeded Clemson in 1998, his senior year there. Professionally, Washington played overseas in Italy, Greece, France, and Israel, as well as playing with the Grand Rapids Hoops. Started his coaching career actually at Romulus with Nate Oates, obviously coach of Alabama currently, head coach there. From there, worked with Greg Campy over there in Oakland from 2006 to 2016, helping them win a couple Summit League regular season and tournament championships, and going to the NCAA tournament twice during that span. From there, was hired by John Beilein at Michigan, worked there under both Beilein and Juwan Howard. At Michigan, he helped them through some of their best years under Beilein, especially there in the later part of the 2010s, before he obviously into Juwan Howard, and he stayed on staff there. Also mentioned, he was instrumental in helping develop their bigs. Namely, we've seen Mo Wagner be one of the names that's been thrown out there that he was instrumental in helping his game develop in his time at Michigan. So that's been a name out there that we've seen him getting a lot of credit for helping develop. Now, for me, Mo Wagner, maybe my most hated Michigan basketball player of all time, but you got to give credit where credit is due. He was still a good player, was still a good player on that block, and obviously he's sticking around a little bit in a role with the Orlando Magic in the NBA too, and was good there in the post for Michigan in his time there with Saddi Washington as his assistant coach there. And listen, good play in the post is something that Michigan State hasn't seen from a big man since Xavier Tillman left campus in 2020. So assuming, I think the assumption across the board is he'll be coaching MSU's bigs, which was previously Doug Wojcik's specialty on the coaching staff. But with this hire of Saddi Washington and Mark Montgomery heading to U of D Mercy, Doug Wojcik is now elevated to associate head coach. Other coaching staff moves, John Borovich and Austin Thornton were both named assistant coaches, joining Thomas Kelly in that role. So that's kind of the background and kind of nitty-gritty cliff notes of his career, where he's been, and his accomplishments throughout his career. But listen here, I know some people were in the camp of, and I'm not even saying I wasn't one of them either, but I think Saddi Washington is a really good hire. But a handful of people were in the camp like, you wanted a former Spartan dog, like Tum Tum, who's coaching down at Bowling Green right now, assistant coach down there. Or someone who already has ties to the program, someone like Chris Fowler over at Western Michigan on Dwayne Stevens' staff. I think getting a guy like Saddi Washington, who he technically does have family ties to the program, obviously from the area, knows the state well, has recruited the state and the area, worked with 2 guys too that Izzo respects deeply in Greg Campy there at Oakland and John Beilein at Michigan, but also a guy with background in developing bigs, as we mentioned in his time at Michigan. I think this is a huge get. As a fan, not that my opinion matters, but I was fine with any direction they went. I thought, if they went with Chris Fowler over at Western, I thought that was a good get. Tum Tum, I thought, that was a good get as well in terms of leadership for the program. And then if they went with Saddi Washington, like Tom did, I thought that was a good get as well. I don't think there was any bad choices there. I think there could have been bad choices in the pool, but of the names that were mainly talked about, I think those 3 names were solid names to be in that group of discussions at least. So another reason I think this is a huge get too is because the season relies heavily on that freshman class from last year, particularly in the starting lineup with Jeremy Fears and Xavier Booker, if they can make big time leaps. So having a guy with that reputation of developing bigs should bode well for Xavier Booker's development this year. All indications are he's probably only got 1 more year on campus here, so you have to make the most of it this year, see what you can get out of him. if he can go from, a floor of averaging, 7, 8 points and, 7 rebounds or so like that, if you can bump that scoring average up and you can get him averaging 10 to 12 points, 8, 9 rebounds, that's a big difference. And I think that's a huge, huge swing for this roster in determining the floor to ceiling of this team this upcoming year. Specifically just that, obviously there's a bunch of other factors, what leaps can Akins make as the primary scoring option? How's Jeremy Fears doing after obviously being off for so long from the gunshot wound he suffered last year during Christmas break and obviously missed the rest of last year? How is he adjusting? Because this is, he only played about a month and a half, 2 months maybe before his season was shut down last year. So how's he developing? Then obviously Cohen Carr being one of the first people off the bench, what strides has he made? Greg Norman, speaking of that freshman class too, can he come in and provide that shooting and, provide some tenacity on defense as well, kind of like similar to what we saw with Matt McQuaid. Then obviously the other positions too. But I think specifically keeping it on Saddi Washington here and the bigs, I think it's going to be big for the development, as we said, of Xavier Booker, but also the other bigs on the roster as well. Carson Cooper, Jackson Kohler, Jesse McCullough, incoming freshman. Don't think he'll play this year. I'm pretty sure he'll redshirt, but who knows. Simon Zapala as well coming in. I think the Washington get here is big for those guys' development this year and going forward. Also, even though, as we said, there is some, I guess would call it maybe indirect ties to the program, family ties to the program with his father playing here, growing up in Lansing, and playing in college in the state too, growing up at the area right when, Tom Izzo was taking over this Michigan State program and building it into the national powerhouse that it is today, in those late 90s there. But I do kind of like that this is an outside hire in some sorts. It's no one that's been a graduate assistant in the program or, played for the program. Like Tom played in the program. Chris Fowler was a GA in the program. Similar to what I kind of said with football and the Jonathan Smith hire and the assistants he was bringing in. After the last handful of years, just wanted fresh faces, fresh ideas coming in while still keeping Spartan dogs and people with knowledge of the program in the building, which obviously this is the case. Obviously Tom Izzo's still here, Thomas Kelly, other guys that are Spartan dogs and know the program are here. This is just one assistant coming in, different from the football program. With the football program, obviously, I wanted Hardo Barnett stayed on, but I think it was awesome that they kept Courtney Hawkins on, brought another Spartan dog on the coaching staff as well. So especially after the last 4 years, getting a new, fresh set of ideas in the building, after the last 4 years not living up to the standards of Michigan State, I think Tom hit a home run with this one. So that'll do it for this one. Excited for the hire. Thank you all so much for watching. See you in the next one. Peace out and go green.